This is the Khmer Times News. My name is Paolo Bornini, and these are your headlines. A tragedy at sea causes the death of many. A policeman gets creative on collecting fines and causes outrage. And button down as there is a potential typhoon on its way. But first, to our main story. Dramatic footage has emerged this week from a sinking ship off the coast of Sihanoukville. On it were Chinese citizens, all in a dramatic life or death struggle. And despite rescue efforts, one person has been confirmed dead and another, 23, are lost to the sea.
A video shot from a rescue boat clearly shows the vessel barely afloat. It is only moments before it was consumed by the sea, and many on board would plunge to their deaths, carried off by the heavy seas themselves. At the bow of the ship, numerous Chinese nationals crowded together, hoping that the inevitable would not come. But it did, and many were to lose their lives. The tragedy caused the Sihanouk administration to offer a reward of $500 to any fisherman who could rescue a victim of the incident, or even to recover a body. But the search was fruitless, as the boat sunk in extremely rough seas off the remote island of Koh Tang. And although authorities are continuing to search for the 23 Chinese nationals, the chances of recovering anyone alive now is extremely slim. Fishermen have discovered 2 bodies, one male and one female. Both were already dead. But it was not only corpses that they found, they also discovered survivors, and they were handed over to Koh Rong City Police. But alas, the survivors were very much in the minority. The Chinese embassy has confirmed that the boat was carrying Chinese nationals and sunk off the southwestern coast. Aboard were 41 Chinese, and only 18 of those have been rescued.
We do have an update on that story and on the rescue efforts. The National Police General Commission has announced that 24 people have now been found, including 3 dead. 1 female and 2 males. 9 people were rescued by the Vietnamese, but unfortunately, there are still 8 people unaccounted for. An astonishing deviation from the rule of law was said to be committed by a traffic police officer in Phnom Penh. He forced a member of the public to pawn his telephone to pay a traffic fine. This has caused yet more rumblings of discontent about the way some traffic police are conducting their duties, with some say an improvised approach to the law.
An investigation has been launched into a traffic police officer who forced a driver to pawn his mobile phone to pay for a traffic penalty. The police officer was deployed at the old stadium when he pulled over a man who was driving a small delivery truck, but he hadn't secured his crash helmet properly. The officer demanded a 50,000 real fine. However, the driver said he didn't have enough money. The driver explained to the Khmer Times, "I said I only had 4,500 real in my pocket, and I was delivering luggage to a customer, and I was afraid of being late. But then the policeman pulled me over. I told him that all I had was my phone, so he took it as collateral." The policeman and the driver then went to the pawn shop, where the phone was pawned for 60,000 real, of which the policeman took 50,000, and the remainder was kept by the driver. The incident has angered many, with the story going viral on Facebook, and the public expressing outrage at the policeman's method of enforcing the law. Phnom Penh Municipal Police said an investigation has been launched into this case. And this case does follow many other complaints that the traffic police within the capital do seem to be getting rather inventive as to how citizens are to pay fines nowadays.
The 16-year-old legal trials of members of the Khmer Rouge has ended. The trials started way back in 1997 and have cost over $300 million. At the trial's conclusion, 3 people have been convicted for being involved in the genocide that caused millions of deaths. Now the court has given its final judgment, and all legal procedures have come to an end.
The trials themselves went on for over 16 years, and the total cost was $330 million. Of that, $45 million was contributed by Cambodia, the rest paid by 39 foreign countries. Japan contributed a staggering $88 million to the extraordinary chambers in the courts of Cambodia. The final chapter in this legal history for the nation was closed with its final verdict, and that verdict was rejecting the appeal of former Khmer Rouge leader Khieu Samphan. And in doing so, the Supreme Court has brought some sort of closure to the millions of victims of the Pol Pot regime, as well as to their families. The extraordinary chambers of the courts of Cambodia rejected Samphan's final appeal against his life sentence, which was handed down to him for his role in the genocide committed from 1975 to 1979 during the Pol Pot's regime. It was the closing of one of the most tragic and catastrophic periods in human history. Between April of 1975 and January of 1979, the Communist Party of Kampuchea, also known as the Khmer Rouge, launched a nationwide socialist revolution through a great leap forward, aimed at building an entirely new country. During their rule, over 2 million Cambodians died. And this final verdict brings to a close an open sore that has wept as long and as hard as the people have. But the ghosts of the Khmer Rouge still echo in the distant fields, as yet another landmine claims another victim.
Deadly driving within the kingdom is not reserved to certain streets or certain times of day. It is an epidemic that spreads from every national highway to every country lane. And this week, the fatalities just kept on mounting. And as usual, the holiday pile-ups keep the death toll rising.
In our first case, a man is in a very serious condition in hospital after being dragged under a luxury car for some distance. He was driving at 10 p.m. along Street 104 in the capital, and according to sources at the scene, the man was riding quite sensibly when all of a sudden he was hit from behind by a jeep and was dragged for some distance down the road, causing extremely severe injuries. If this is not bad enough, whilst he was trapped under the vehicle, a passerby stole the injured man's phone as he lay under the car. It simply beggars belief. In our next incident, yet another bike is dragged under a car, but this time it was fatal. A young man died after his motto was hit and dragged under the car by a reckless driver late at night in Phnom Penh. Sources from the scene said that before the incident, the victim was seen riding a black Honda Dream when all of a sudden a yellow Ford Ranger, driven by a Chinese man driving at high speed, hit the motorcycle and dragged the victim under the car for over 20 meters. The 22-year-old died shortly after in hospital. And with the recent holidays being a death multiplier, on one day alone, 8 people died in traffic accidents. And as the holiday accident numbers come in, that number will almost certainly rise, way beyond its current figure. And more grieving families will hear the news that they can never forget.
The Ministry of Water Resources and Meteorology has issued a special bulletin warning of a super typhoon called Nero that could affect several parts of Cambodia, including Siem Reap. Anticipated at the end of the week and at the weekend, it could well bring severe flooding to many provinces.
The ministry said that the northwestern provinces such as Siem Reap, Ode Minche, Preah Vihear, Rattanakinri and Battambang Bong could be hit by very heavy rainfall due to low pressure and worsening weather conditions. They also stated that the rainfall level combined with runoff from Thailand would cause these provinces to be flooded, and the situation potentially could be quite desperate in some low-lying areas. In a press release issued this week, the Ministry of Meteorology added that the absorption of Typhoon Nero, which originated in the eastern Philippines, could badly affect agriculture in many areas, especially those over northern Cambodia. But it's not just this low-pressure front that will cause the problems, as yet more bad seasonal weather is also predicted. The typhoon will also pass through Vietnam and the Mekong River basin of Laos and Thailand this weekend. The heavy rainfall combined with seasonal rains could cause waterways to be overloaded, and many areas could face the dangers of flash flooding.
And now it's time to look at our sports news. In sport this week, the National League is well underway, and England had a ding-dong of a game, whereas France fell flat on their faces. So let's see those results, and then we shall have a glance at the Premier League table in England to see who is the king of the hill.
And here's the Nations League first. England, Germany, ding-a-ling-a-ding-dong, 3-3. England did really well to hold the Germans at bay there. Italy, 2-0, pretty damn convincing, but the French, ooh la la, on their knees. They went down 2-0 to Denmark. Now, let's switch over to the Premier League. And here are the top 10. Arsenal still sitting at the top, but only by 1 point. Man City breathing down their necks. Man U've made a recovery. They're now in a 5th place. And Chelsea not doing so well. They're at 7th at the moment due to 2 losses.
It's time to have a look ahead and see what the weather has in store for us next week.
We can expect rain and storms across the board, and that is no surprise considering there's a potential typhoon on the way. The winds are light, only approximately 10-15 miles an hour, but the humidity's high, still in the 80s. If you need to go out, you need to wrap up dry.
This has been the Khmer Times News. You can contact myself at the studio by mailing us at ktnewsstudio@gmail.com. Please do subscribe and comment and stay up to date with all the breaking news by following us on both Facebook and Telegram. This has been Paolo Bonini, and that was the week that was. I'll see you next weekend for your weekly Roundup.